Is this thing on? Hey guys, I'm Russ Rapp, and welcome to my very first live stream on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, where I talk about nothing or no thing. So, what my channel is about is non-duality, and I wanted to do it live today because I thought it was a good way to talk about this idea or concept of time, because sometimes I think that makes people feel like they're out of control, they don't have control over their lives, or they want to really take control over time to use it for themselves. But ultimately, like you've probably heard before, time is the great equalizer. There's always the same number of hours in the day that we all get, and so in our language we talk about, oh man, I had a tough day and there's not enough hours in the day, or something like time just flew by. And so when it comes to non-duality, this concept of time, it kind of points to the fact that it's both real and an illusion. And the idea is kind of like, it's an analogy I would use is, if you're on a train, if you've ever tried to control time, it's almost like a sense that you're on a train where you're going down the tracks. Here's Stanley, the train. And so you're on this train, and it's moving 90 miles an hour down the tracks, and you want to get off, but sometimes life feels like it's just non-stop, and you can't slow it down or speed it up. You're just stuck, and you don't have any control over it. Especially when you have situations in your life when you have a lot of change. It seems like the train's accelerating. You can really feel it in your body that things are moving faster. Well, we have our first live viewer here. That's very exciting. So as I was saying, your train's going on the tracks, and you can't slow it down, and you have no control over it. So the idea is that when it comes to non-duality, really it's almost like you're that person on the train where, even though life seems to be going down the tracks as fast as you can't stop it, and if you tried to jump off, it would probably be the end of you. But non-duality is kind of like the train going down the tracks, and you're on the train just kind of sitting there in your chair having a good time, and enjoying, maybe sipping on a drink or something. But even though the train's going super fast, you're really centered and just at peace in the middle of all that. And that's kind of what it's like. But really, it's the idea of when you think of non-duality, kind of an analogy to that is that the train is going down the tracks, but it's really just an illusion. It's almost like you look out the windows and you see everything going by really fast, and you feel the rumble. But it's kind of like you're on a ride at Disney World where the windows are actually movie screens, and so you're actually not going anywhere. You're just in a stationary place, and so it seems like you're moving down the tracks, but ultimately time is an illusion in that sense, and everything's internal. And so hopefully that analogy makes sense, because I know there are some times when I want to be able to figure something out, or maybe there's something happening in your life that you're not looking forward to, and so you're thinking, okay, I gotta do this tomorrow, and I'm not really looking forward to it, and tomorrow comes whether you like it or not. And so this idea of time is really, when it comes to, yes, thanks for the comment. I had a comment that said I love analogies, so that's what I'm here for. And the fact that that was kind of my idea from the get-go, is to make videos where you can use some kind of visuals or some analogies to make you think about non-duality in different terms, and because your mind works in so many different ways where really you can come at it at any angle you want. And so I wanted to to really, when I started making my YouTube videos, is really focus on the fact that, you know, I want to come up with, instead of saying the same thing over and over again, like some of the non-dual speakers, like for instance Tony Parsons, a lot of times he'll say the same types of things. So if you say, so what is it like, you know, Tony, to be enlightened or have this non-dual awareness? What is it like? And he would say something like, well, who is it for? Or, there's no person, or I'm not even here, I didn't even show up, it's great that I didn't show up to this talk. And instead of like indulging the conversation into thinking in these terms of stuff happening or stuff happening to a particular person, he just kind of nips it in the bud and shuts it down right there. And so kind of what I wanted to do is, in my YouTube channel, is talk about non-duality and really still try to build an audience, because I think sometimes people have this conception of what a non-dual teacher should be, that you shouldn't really desire anything or want anything. And so if you had a non-dual teacher that came around and said, I want to build a YouTube channel, I want to get more people subscribed so they can watch my videos, you'd be like, oh, how dare you, you're not a real non-dual teacher, because you want something out of life, and that's really misguided, so you're kind of missing the point. And so what I wanted to do was make videos on YouTube to really kind of highlight the fact that, you know, in short bursts, you can get a little nugget of thing that you can maybe mull on as something to think about. But ultimately, non-duality doesn't matter if you learn something or not, because there's really, the only thing you can really learn is that this is what is and there is nothing else. And so when you think of non-duality, if you're trying to get something from these conversations, I think you can get something, and I think there are some good non-dual teachers or speakers that talk about non-duality in terms that almost I would think of as like cognitive therapy, where, you know, they take your mindset or what your thought process is, and if they're not healthy, it's putting in different mindsets or different thought processes that maybe will counteract those things that aren't working for you in your life. And so it's just like any type of thing where people relate to that, and so they get those types of alternative thoughts. But ultimately, non-duality is really saying that you give, kind of like A Course in Miracles says, that you give reality all the meaning that it has. And so you're never disconnected from the source, whatever you want to call that, and that you're always is, and you're not separate from everything that's around you. And so there's really nothing to do and nothing to say, and so there's nothing to mess up. And when it comes to making YouTube live videos, I enjoy this because on the one hand, it's nice to make a packaged video that people can consume easily, and that's what YouTube really pushes for, is to make content that adds value. But the ironic thing about non-duality is that it's a paradox. And so the idea that you're packaging something for someone is kind of silly. And so when I've made videos like that, it's just like, why am I doing all this work, and why do I have to worry about making this video that makes sense? Because sometimes I'm not the best speaker, and I can babble and that sort of thing. And so, you know, that's where I wanted to provide the most clear message to you, but at the end of the day, it almost feels like it falls flat, or it's a little, how do you say, just kind of silly. Or as I'm talking, it's like, sometimes I get tired of talking myself, because a lot of times, you know, I don't necessarily I don't feel like I want to talk, and so when I have to get in front of this camera, it kind of forces me to talk about it, because most of the time, when I think of things that, when it comes to non-duality or enlightenment, I think of ideas that are like, oh, that would be a great way to express it. And at the time when I think about it, it sounds really great in my head. And like my train story here, you know, it made a lot more sense when I kind of thought it through. But when you go live and you start talking about it, anything just pops out. So especially when it's unscripted. I mean, you can make something scripted, but at the same time, you know, life doesn't really care how many plans you have. And so non-duality or Advaita, or not to, whatever you want to call it, whatever terms, enlightenment, it doesn't really care what you think or if you plan it or not. So whether you're the kind of person that likes to plan a lot or not plan very much at all and just kind of be a freewheeling kind of a person and just go with the flow, life or time or whatever isn't really concerned. And so I think it's great to make plans. And so when you get into non-duality and everything is it as it is and time's going to happen and there is no person, you don't have control. And so it's like, well, let's not make any plans. So no, there's nothing wrong with making plans. That's the beauty of it. There's nothing wrong with that. And so you can make plans, but ultimately at the end of the day, life's going to do whatever it does. And so like if let's say you build a house, people contractors or architects and stuff that build houses, a lot of times you hear that, okay, we plan on having it done, this coming June, and August rolls around and it's still being built because you run into so many things that you didn't expect. And you can make this perfect plan, this perfect architectural structure on paper, but when it comes to going out in the real world and putting it up and laying the foundation and building walls and putting the windows, everything that goes along with it, it's going to happen how it is. And so you want to have a good plan so that it makes it as most streamlined as possible. But ultimately, once you get into that process, it's going to go how it is. And there's no way to have the most perfect plan or the most perfect idea that's going to solve all your problems. And so if you come to non-duality with the idea that you're going to find the guru or the person that's going to solve all your problems, or that you're going to come up with some concept that's going to fix everything, that's kind of missing the point. And so that's why I like this live video, and we're kind of going with the flow here as we do this. I'm messing with the light just to see what that looks like. But we're going live because I wanted just to show you that, the first video I made on YouTube, it probably took me 2-3 hours to really 2-3 hours to really make the video because I had to stop and start, and I didn't have anything written down, but it was like to the point where I got frustrated where I guess it probably took more like 5 hours. And by the way, we're at 12.5 minutes. I'm going to plan to be this going to be around 15 minutes or so, just to see, because I know YouTube has a 15-minute cutoff potentially, but I'm going to see if I can maybe make an 1.5-hour video one day, God forbid. But so the idea is that I lost my train of thought, which is great. So in a second here, I've got it pulled up on our laptop here just to see. I was just curious to see if I streamed on the phone, if it would somehow stream on the computer, but I don't think those really talk to one another, so, which is fine, because I can still see that I have one viewer, which is totally excellent. I've had some comments, which is great. So when it comes to what I was talking about, YouTube, making videos, yeah, making it so long, because when I would start to talk, it wasn't something like I had a teleprompter or anything. So when I would speak, I would start and then get to the point where I'd get frustrated, and I wanted to make it a pretty streamlined video, and so I would have to take after take, and it was kind of just silly. I'm really bright. Turn the lights down a titch. Okay, so I'm a little washed out, so we're going to turn that down. I'm going to ask my audience of one how that looks. Does that look better? Do I look not so blown out now? Let's see, audience. Are you there? Can you hear me? Hello? You in there? Yeah, that looks better, huh? Okay, great. So you can see we're doing it live, and that's life. And so if you're expecting that you're going to somehow be enlightened or become some new non-dual person or awareness or something, you have to realize that the videos that you're watching, they aren't enlightened either, in the sense that they are somehow an elevated master or somehow better than you, because the whole idea of non-duality or enlightenment is the fact that we all are essentially part of the same energy, if you want to call it that. And so because if you think about it from a time standpoint, if you think that this person is enlightened now, and so Rupert Spira or Tony Parsons or whoever you're thinking about, there was a point in their life when they weren't enlightened. I'm sure they would probably tell you a story that isn't real because it's just something they're saying and it's not real as of right now. But ultimately, if you go by the story or people that knew them, they would say, well, obviously they weren't enlightened 20 years ago. And so from a time standpoint, does it take time to become enlightened? So is that person from the past, were they not enlightened? No, it's because enlightenment has nothing to do with you. And so Tony Parsons isn't an enlightened being, if you want to call it that, or Rupert Spira or any of these non-dual teachers or myself. And so that's where that's the main message I want to get out. And so what I'd like to do is have you subscribe to my channel, because I'd like to do more live videos here and interact. And when I get questions and stuff, I want you to ask me, and so we can have a conversation here. And so subscribe to my channel. Again, this is Russ Rapp coming to you live from somewhere and nowhere all at the same time. So with that said, I just want to say peace. It's been real and unreal. And I also want to say, let's see, eres yo, soy tú. Paz. That's Spanish for you. Okay, so now I got to figure out how to turn this off. Let's see. This is a little anticlimactic, but do I hit the X? Let's see. I'm gonna hit the screen. That did nothing. Okay, there's 3 dots. What does that do? Nothing. Hit the live button. Nothing. Okay, I'm gonna hit the X, and this is what we're gonna do. First, I'm gonna type a message. What does this do? Okay, let's probably respond to a message. Maybe. I'm gonna hit the X. All right, here we go. Are you sure you want to stop streaming? Sure. All right. Till next time.